Some of the biggest app developers on Earth have entire security teams, legal departments, and unlimited budgets, and for over a decade, all of it struggled against one person who never even showed a face. This is the story of Lucky Patcher, the app that taught a generation of Android users how to break the rules, and along the way, became one of the clearest examples of a fight that's still shaping how your phone works today. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why so many apps quietly changed the way they protect themselves, and why that fight never really ended. But first, subscribe to InfoTronic and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next one. Nobody actually knows who built Lucky Patcher, not developers who lost money to it, not the forums that hosted it for years, not even the community that grew up defending it. The developer went by a single name, Chelpis. He surfaced on forums like XDA around 2012, posting patches for other people's apps like it was routine weekend work. By 2013, the tool already had a name, a growing following, and eventually its own dedicated website, built without a single piece of paid promotion. Users on those early forums described him as a cracker working out of Russia, someone with an unusually deep understanding of how Android actually verified purchases under the hood. He never gave an interview, never revealed a face, never confirmed a real name, a location, or even a motive beyond the obvious one. No leaked photo, no lawsuit that ever put a real name on paper, despite the fact that plenty of developers had every financial incentive to try. In an era where almost every online figure eventually gets tracked down by someone determined enough, Chelpis simply never was. That absence became part of the mythology itself. The less anyone knew about him, the more the tool seemed to belong to everyone who used it, rather than to any one person who could be blamed or arrested. And yet, somehow, a real community formed around a total stranger. People translated his tool into Arabic, into Russian, into a dozen other languages. They kept mirrors of the download alive when his site went down. They defended him in forum threads against furious developers and kept updating documentation for an app whose creator they had never once seen or spoken to. That's an unusual kind of loyalty to build around someone who might not even be a real name at all. Here's the part most people never understood, even the ones who used it every single day. Lucky Patcher wasn't hacking servers. It wasn't breaking into anything remote, and it wasn't intercepting anyone's payment information in transit. It was doing something far simpler and, in a way, far more elegant. It was lying to your own phone, quietly, from the inside. It opened up an app's installation file, decompiled it back into readable code, found the exact lines that checked whether you'd paid for something, and rewrote them to say yes, even when the honest answer was no. The app would boot up, run its own internal check exactly the way its developers had designed it to, get back a false confirmation planted by Lucky Patcher, and simply let you in, because as far as its own code was concerned, the transaction had already happened. It then repackaged that altered code back into a working app, so the whole process felt seamless. No visible error, no broken interface, just a paywall that quietly stopped existing. With root access, it went even further. It started acting almost like a second system administrator living inside your phone, freezing background apps, rewriting permissions, reaching into corners of Android a normal user was never meant to touch. It could strip ad network permissions out of an app entirely, blocking it from ever phoning home to its ad servers again. That's what actually made it dangerous, and it's worth being precise about why. It wasn't dangerous because it was illegal. Plenty of illegal tools are clumsy and mostly harmless. It was dangerous because it genuinely worked, reliably, across thousands of different apps built by thousands of different teams, none of whom had coordinated with each other on how to protect themselves, which is a much harder problem to solve at scale than most people give it credit for. You'd think something this disruptive would need a marketing campaign to get any real traction. It needed the exact opposite of one, and that's precisely what made it so hard to stop. Most apps at the time checked whether you'd paid using data stored right there on the device itself, in a local file that never left the phone. That meant the lock and the lockpick were sitting in the same room the entire time, with nobody guarding the door between them. Combine that fundamental design flaw with paywalls a 14-year-old with no credit card could never realistically afford, stacked on top of ads that interrupted gameplay every few minutes, and you get the exact conditions an app like this needed to take off almost overnight. It spread through forums where teenagers traded tips like currency. It spread through YouTube tutorials that racked up views specifically because they promised free coins in a game everyone was already obsessed with. It spread through word of mouth in school hallways, one phone at a time, faster than any funded ad campaign could have pushed it, because nobody had to be convinced to want free things. They only had to be shown how. Developers didn't just sit there and quietly absorb the losses. They fought back, and within a couple of years, it turned into a genuine, ongoing arms race, with each side escalating in response to the other. They renamed internal functions to make them harder to locate and edit. They buried entire sections of code in obfuscation designed specifically to make the logic unreadable to anyone poking around inside it. They built detection systems that would simply refuse to open the app at all if Lucky Patcher was found installed anywhere on the device, no matter whether it was actually being used against that particular app or not. Google's Play Protect eventually stepped in and started flagging Lucky Patcher directly as a security threat, which meant even finding a working copy became its own small obstacle course. And once the real, original version got harder to track down, fake copies loaded with actual malware started circulating in its place, wearing the same yellow smiley icon, promising the same free unlocks, which created a strange, almost karmic irony. The exact users trying to avoid getting scammed by a paywall were now the ones most likely to get scammed by a virus hiding inside the very tool meant to help them dodge one. Every one of those fixes eventually failed, one by one, in almost the exact order you'd expect. Renaming functions bought a few weeks, obfuscation bought a few months, detection systems got detected and bypassed right back within days. Only one approach actually ended the fight for good, and it wasn't a clever trick at all. It was a complete change in architecture. The real solution was moving the payment check off the phone entirely and onto a server that Lucky Patcher could never reach, no matter how deep its root access went. There was no longer a local file to edit, because there was no longer a local answer sitting on the device at all. The phone would ask a question over the internet, a server somewhere else would answer it, and nothing running on your device could quietly change that answer along the way. That fix required real engineering investment though, and that's exactly where the story splits into two very different outcomes. Big studios with real infrastructure budgets adapted almost immediately, folding server-side verification into their next scheduled update without much drama. Independent developers, running an app or two out of a small team with almost no back-end budget, stayed exposed for years longer, watching the same exploit drain their revenue long after the big players had already sealed the door shut behind them. And this is where the story gets genuinely uncomfortable, because the fix didn't just stop piracy in its tracks. It reshaped how nearly every app on your phone behaves today, whether you ever installed Lucky Patcher or even knew it existed. Games started requiring a constant, always-on internet connection just to open at all, which quietly killed offline play on a long flight or in a subway tunnel with no signal. Simple banner ads, the kind Lucky Patcher could strip out of an app in seconds, got replaced with unskippable video ads baked directly into the middle of gameplay itself, structurally impossible to remove because removing them would break the actual game loop, not just cover up an image. Mandatory account creation became standard too, turning what used to be a simple offline download into something that always phones home to check who you are before it lets you play. None of that happened because developers suddenly wanted to be more restrictive for its own sake. It happened because the old, trusting version of mobile software had already been tested, exploited, and quietly broken by one anonymous developer working from a single laptop somewhere, and the entire industry decided, almost in unison, never again. Think about how strange that actually is for a moment. A single, unverified stranger, with no company and no public face, moved the entire mobile industry toward permanent internet dependency. Not a government regulation, not a platform policy update from Google or Apple. One person's tool, and the collective, decentralized decision by thousands of developers to never let that particular door stay open again. So here's the actual through line, stated plainly, without any metaphor left to unpack. Lucky Patcher didn't just get patched out of relevance and quietly forgotten about. It permanently proved one lesson to an entire industry, and that lesson stuck for good. Never let the app sitting in a stranger's pocket be the thing that decides whether they've paid you. That single lesson is the reason server-side verification is now the industry default instead of the exception. It's the reason always online requirements exist even for games with no real gameplay need for a live connection. It's the reason ads got harder to skip instead of easier, folded permanently into gameplay instead of floating removably on top of it. One anonymous developer's rebellion against paywalls is, indirectly and almost invisibly, the reason your phone behaves the way it does today, years after most people even remember his name. Lucky Patcher still technically exists. You can still find a copy of it right now if you go looking hard enough. It just can't do very much anymore, because the entire industry rebuilt itself specifically so that it never could again, brick by brick, one server-side fix at a time. And that's the real pattern worth carrying away from this. Every time someone finds a genuine crack in a system, the fix that follows almost never just closes that one crack and stops there. It usually rebuilds the entire system around everyone, including the millions who never once tried to exploit anything in the first place, and who now simply live with restrictions built to stop someone they've never even heard of. So next time your game demands an internet connection just to load a single level, or an ad refuses to let you skip it, you'll know exactly why. Let me know down in the comments which app you think deserves this treatment next. And if you haven't already, subscribe to InfoTronic and tap that bell icon so the next one lands right in your feed the moment it drops.